Are you sitting comfortably? Then we'll begin.
'Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. There's still time. The AFTN Soccer Show, broadcasting on CITR Radio, 101.9 FM from the unceded Musqueam Territory at the University of beautiful and very wet British Columbia. I'm Michael McCall.
And I'm Felipe Vallejo.
And we're back with another packed podcast. Zach is still making his way back from California after being down for the CONCACAF Nations League matches. We'll unpack his trip when he's back on the next show. We will talk about those two games in this show from Canada's point of view. We'll also talk Whitecaps, sadly suffering their first league loss of 2025. We'll look at that. We've got a feature interview as well with a Whitecap player that has gone out on loan into the CPL. We'll talk more football and have some fun chat and music along the way as well. Before we get into all of that, how have things been with you, Felipe? It's been a couple of weeks since you've been on the show, and I know you're very busy. You wear a lot of hats.
I do indeed. But it's been good. It's been great. I love this. I miss this in the off season. The fact that there's been so many games and there's so many things coming up that haven't even started, like the CPL, like the NSL. It's fantastic. And I'm just super excited to just dig into all of it. And I know come July, August, I'm going to feel a little bit tired because my hands are going to be so full. But for now, I'm loving it.
Yeah, this is such a busy time, as you say, and we've got the two leagues kicking off next month, CPL and NSL as well. It's just going to ramp things up. We're going to ramp up the coverage as well. We've got some interviews we're doing this week, CPL related. Felipe also does his CPL podcast. We'll plug that at the end of the show. We'll plug it now as well. Definitely check that out. Give everyone a plug early on from what your podcast is.
Oh, okay. Early on, I like it. It's a CPL podcast called Coast to Coast FC. Right now, we're about to finish our preview series. This week, we're going to record the last episode before we start to getting into the first weekend of the CPL because it's only a couple weeks away now.
Yeah, it's coming up thick and fast. I thought we may as well plug it now. I always wonder how many folks switch off before we get to the end bit because we get to wavelength. I think some folk just turn off at that point. But yeah, I've been watching so much football this past week. It's been insane. And it's helped with the clocks going forward. My wife always struggles and just can't get into the swing of things and goes to bed super early. So it's left me with lots of time in my hands to watch football. So I've been watching US Open Cup. Was glued to that on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, even Friday. There was US Open Cup games. All the World Cup qualifiers around the world. FIFA Plus, for people that don't know, they've got all the African qualifiers free to watch on that. And they had the Oceania qualifying as well. We'll touch a little bit on that in the next part, but I was watching New Zealand's two games in that. Was also watching New Caledonia versus Tahiti. I think when you're doing that, you maybe need to question where your life is going. Because I messaged my friends back in Fife on our East Fife podcast WhatsApp, and I said, "Oh, did anyone see what happened in the New Zealand-Fiji game?" And one of the replies was, "I've many questions about this." First one, why are you watching New Zealand and Fiji? It was on at 11 o'clock at night. I'm a late bedder. It was perfect time. I know, but we'll get into that in the next part. Some interesting stuff to talk about that. I was sadly watching Scotland, who played well on Thursday and then were absolutely destroyed at Hampden on Sunday by Greece, who were fantastic. And Scotland very badly missing Ryan Gauld, as the Whitecaps were.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully he's back for club and country soon. So I've been watching all that. But on the last show, we spoke to Dax McCarty, and we're talking about the Des Moines Menace US Open Cup game, where it was all the old crocs coming out of retirement to take on Sporting Kansas City 2. That game was played, it was -7 at kickoff
Goodness.
with a wind blowing like I don't know what, so I don't know how it felt. And they couldn't, like, Des Moines couldn't kick the ball over the halfway line. The wind was so strong. But
Jesus.
then they got the wind in the second half and they ended up winning 2-1. So all
Yeah.
the old guys are now through to the next round where they've got a home game, and it's a game I think they've got a good chance of winning as well. So we might have another interview that we're doing this week with one of the players on the team that will be in the next show, but I'll keep that as a bit of a surprise. Have you been watching anything weird and wonderful? Have you been following your Colombia?
I have been following my Colombia. Unfortunately, I've been disappointed by my Colombia. 2-1 loss against Brazil last minute.
Oh, I
Goal
saw
from
the winning goal. Yeah,
Yeah, it's very unfortunate, unlucky. It's sad because Colombia at the beginning of World Cup qualifying looked like one of the strongest teams, like just under Argentina. But in the last like 6 to 8 months, they have just been kind of in a bit of a slump, and it's hard to see them. I'm sure they'll qualify, but it's hard to see them
yeah,
catching up to the likes of Argentina and Ecuador, because I think Ecuador now is in second, and so I'm
yes,
hoping
and that's
that.
even with a 3-point deduction.
Exactly. The fact that that's how good Ecuador are right now in in the table for Common Ball is because they've just been like undefeated now for like the last 5, 6, maybe 7 games. Like they've won four and I think drawn two in their last 6 games.
Wow.
And so they've been flying. And they beat Colombia earlier last year in November, and then they beat Venezuela on Friday. Pedro Vito got an assist on one, which is great, and he played really well in that game. But yeah, Chile are just doing incredible, and meanwhile Colombia are kind of slumping now. They're in sixth. They're still
Yeah,
6 points
I
ahead
had a
of
look at
Bolivia
all
in
the
seventh.
tables, and it's the top six go through it. You've got a 6-point gap, so you should be pretty safe to be going through, I think.
Yeah, we've just lost, 3 of our last 4, and like they're against three of the toughest oppositions outside of Argentina, like Uruguay we lost, Ecuador we lost, Brazil we lost. So the next few games, like I think we have 6 more games in World Cup qualifying, but it's against the likes of Paraguay, Peru, Bolivia. I think
Hmm.
we still have to face Argentina and maybe Venezuela. So I'm hoping that with at least 7 points out of those last 6 matches, I think should secure us a place in the World Cup.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
even if you're seventh, you're in this playoff thing with all the
The
also
Inter
rans.
Confederation.
Yeah, one of them being New Caledonia, who I don't think are going to be much of a threat. So, I mean, if Colombia's not there, it would be a massive shock. In fact, you know what? I was going to talk international in part two, but since we've kicked off the bat talking about this, we'll just talk international in this part, and we'll get onto Canada in a sec. But I had a look at all the tables because I was very curious because two teams have booked their berths already. Japan,
Hmm.
they've already booked their spot at next year's World Cup, and New Zealand. Just last night, I was up till the back of one watching them take on New Caledonia, and it's the first time that the Oceania champions have got an automatic berth to the World Cup with it being expanded. So from now on, it should be New Zealand, barring crazy development elsewhere from some of the other countries that will be in World Cups going forward. They were made to work hard though by New Caledonia. They only won 3-0, and it took them an hour to break down New Caledonia, who it was a physical game. Right from the offset, there was fouls galore. That seemed to be New Caledonia's way, and their goalkeeper was good. But yeah, New Zealand booked their spot, so they're the second team, along with Japan, to book their spots next year. And of course, they're coming to play Canada in a new tournament in June out in Toronto. If I wasn't commentating, I'd love to go out for that. My League One commentary is going to stop me doing that just because I've been following the New Zealand team. There's the first goal last night, and basically the match winner. It had Whitecaps connections.
Hmm.
Michael Boxhall, the former
Oh yeah.
centre back in the first 2 years in MLS, now with Minnesota, scored his first ever goal for New Zealand in his 55th or 56th appearance as well,
Oh,
heading
nice.
home a corner from former Whitecaps 2 player Francis de Vries.
Oh.
So Francis was with Whitecaps 2 in the first incarnation of Whitecaps 2. And he's been playing brilliantly with Auckland in the A-League, and he's in the international mix now, and his set-piece deliveries and crosses are phenomenal. So it was nice to see them combine. But the semi-final, it was New Zealand and Fiji.
Oh, I
It was
yeah,
Fiji.
Fiji.
Chris Wood from Nottingham Forest got a hat-trick. And I don't know if you saw my tweet about this. He got subbed off, and he was sitting on the bench and then decided to go and sign autographs for kids in the stand and pose for photos. And the referee booked him for leaving the play area, or the area of play. Play area makes it sound like he's in a McDonald's ball pit, but
And then there it might be more concerning. But yeah, no, that's ridiculous that they like yeah, it's within the rules, yada yada yada, but like he's literally just going to do fan service.
yeah,
Like he's not
it,
unsporting or anything.
it was just absolutely baffling. But it was great to see them qualified. So then I had a look at some of the other standings. Iran have basically booked their place. I think some of the African teams after the games on Tuesday, maybe even some of the Asian teams, will basically already have clinched their spots. But you look at some of the standings because it's been expanded, and there's going to be some teams at the World Cup for the first time. Like in Asia, Jordan might be there for the first time. Africa, Benin could be there for the first time, and Cape Verde Islands. And it's like, I'm all
Ooh.
for that.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see some of these like teams that you never would think would be in a World Cup in a World Cup.
Yeah, it might not be great for crowds in certain places. Like, for example, if we had Benin versus Cape Verde at BC Place, I don't think that's the kind of World Cup matchup that folk are hoping for here.
Very true. That is, yeah, I don't know if people will come out in droves for that one.
But they will be coming out in droves, of course, to see Canada. So let's kick things off talking about Canada at the Nations League. They finished third, and I think going into the tournament, you would probably have taken third grudgingly, and you'd be like, well, they lost to Mexico, but they beat Panama in the third place game. Third was the worst that I think we would have expected to do at this tournament. I think
Yeah.
more folk thought we'd be in the final, but was that
Mm.
just expectations getting a little bit too carried away?
I don't know. I feel like obviously people are still riding off the high of Copa America and how well Canada did there. And the fact that Mexico, in the same way, like did not have a good Copa America and haven't been great. You can even go back to 2022 World Cup. They weren't fantastic there either. So like they've been on the quote unquote decline in, the last 4 or 5 years. So I think people's general expectation was for Canada to beat Mexico, not comfortably, but to be able to, fight hard and get the victory to get that showdown against the United States. So I think, at the level where Canada are now in their growth, especially under Jesse March, and the trend that Mexico are sort of setting in the last major tournaments, I don't think it's that, wild to have that expectation for Canada to beat Mexico. I think after the fact, now knowing how the game went, you
Hmm.
can maybe say that Canada maybe didn't respect their opponent, or the fans at least didn't respect their opponent enough. I know myself even, I was personally surprised by, the way that Mexico did so well. But I think, especially in the game against Canada, it really suited the way that Javier Aguirre and Mexico like to play because, getting that early goal just made them be able to sit back, be
Hmm.
really organized, really structured, and super hard to break down, which is one of the best things that Mexico can do, when they're playing football.
Yeah, if you fall behind to Mexico, even if it's not the Mexico of old, it's going to be hard to get back into the game. I mean, when I was drawing this podcast up last week, I was like, oh, it's going to be a celebratory one. We could be celebrating Canada's first trophy in 25 years, the Whitecaps going 5-0. Kind of that came off the rails a little
Mhm.
bit as this went on, but it's not going to be doom and gloom because I think there's still a lot of positives to
Mm.
take from this. I think there was a little bit of an overreaction to the Mexico loss. I genuinely think Canada were the better team
Mhm.
against Mexico. They just lacked the killer instinct in the final third. And that's what Mexico had. And you saw it in the final from Mexico as well. They've got those deadly marksmen. The the two guys, really Raul and Santi, that caused all the problems, especially against Panama as well. And that was kind of the difference. I mean, we'll talk about the non-penalty call and everything as well. But I think when you go down that early, 46 seconds in, it sets the tone. But I do think some of the post-game post-mortems from the Mexico game was a little bit much.
Yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people. I mean, it's football, right? And football fans, as passionate as they are, they're always going to be sort of melodramatic, especially with Canada that have finally come good and are on this sort of upward trend. Whenever that you're sort of met by these disappointing results, I feel like people feel more strongly, which is good to a degree because before it's better than apathy, like it was before, just like, oh, Canada lost again, whatever, keep going. But I do agree there was a bit of overreaction. I know for me, I was obviously disappointed within the game, but I do agree that Canada were the better side with the ball. Just you kind of could see still that ability to dominate games, to really put the pressure on, that high intensity, energizer buddy soccer that's Jesse Marsh is known for, or energy drink soccer as well, you could call it. Um, I think for me the biggest disappointment was really that against Mexico, and this is common knowledge, they're going to play mind games with you. They're gonna dive. They're going to piss you off. They're gonna argue. They're gonna try to get under your skin, and you have to not stoop to that level because they'll beat you with that. They'll beat you in physicality and out fouling you and out diving you. Like they're extremely good at that, and like much of South American teams, I know because my Colombia does it as well, and it's just something that is a dark arts of football that we're good at. And when you are facing a team like that, you have to be not only structured like tactically, but you have to be like well structured mentally
Yeah,
too. And talk about the non-penalty call, but as soon as that non-penalty call happened, Canada lost the plot.
yeah.
Like they started to play way too emotionally. You saw again, like the back line, Alistair Johnston, very lucky boy to stay on.
I think he should have had a second yellow.
Yeah.
Like I would question whether he should have had the first one, but once he's on that, there was definitely a tackle towards the end of the first half that for me was a yellow card, so it should have been a second yellow and off. And he's used to passionate games playing for Celtic in the old firm. And I think that's taken his level of aggression up a notch, which in games like this and in CONCACAF is not great. But that it wasn't just him. As you said,
No.
players were losing their heads all over the pitch, and it was just anger and frustration.
And that's the thing is that you saw Ali got into it as well.
Yeah.
You saw Alphonso Davies get a yellow card in Mexico's final third. I think it was Moise Bombito got the other one. So like three out of the four defenders in the back line were on yellow cards within 30 minutes of the match.
Yeah.
And it's in those moments where like you guys gotta calm it down because the way to beat Mexico is by just not caring about it because then they'll get frustrated with themselves because you just literally have to outplay them because if you try to play them at their own game more times than not you will lose. And so for me it was a bit naive of Canada to kind of try to stoop to that level. And Jesse Marsh, as much as he is incredible and amazing, I feel like that's something that he himself, I mean, the game against Panama showed it, needs to also kind of set an example for, is to
Yeah.
be calm and to set and to kind of, you know, be able to take things one thing at a time. It's a long game. There's a lot of things you have to focus on. Focus on the task at hand. Focus on what you can control. You can't control the ref. You can't control the opponents. So I feel like that was for me the one of the biggest lessons that I took away from that game against Mexico is just the maturity in the team still needs to be sort of helped, and maybe because they don't have a lot of the veterans of before in and around the team, like Atiba or Steven Vittoria or Milan Borja and Junior Hoylett, all these old players that had a bit more of that maturity. Maybe, not for playing because obviously there's a couple players even that did play that I think should be playing less, but just in terms of
Yeah.
the
We'll get to
mentality.
that.
Yeah, exactly. It just in terms of the mentality helping the team out. And then the other thing as well, which I'm sure most people noticed too, is just set pieces. It was so disappointing, set pieces. Canada had 7 corners, and honestly, they didn't have a single good chance until added time. Moise Bombito had finally got onto the ball first and had a chance to be able to put it at net, but it went wide. With 7 corners and a bunch of free kicks, they offered nothing.
Hmm.
And then Raul Jimenez had 1 free kick, second goal,
Oh, I mean,
dagger.
beautiful free kick, beautiful strike, nice curl. Dane Sinclair has to
Yeah.
get to that.
Yeah, that's he has his this tournament for him hasn't been great,
No.
unfortunately. In
And the
both
pressure
games.
was on him, but it was
Yeah.
also the opportunity was there for him. It's like
Yeah.
you can seize this number one jersey. And now I don't know that we can honestly say we have a clear-cut number one.
Yeah. Yeah, because Max obviously is struggling at club level, and so he hasn't that's why Jesse didn't pick him, but then Dane Sinclair is more prone, I'd say, at least historically, than Max to making a mistake or to
Hmm.
not getting to a shot strong enough. And so it's kind of like form versus tendency. And it makes it really tough to be like, ah, yes, this guy should be our number one. Oh no, this guy should be our number one. It's kind of like which of the two issues would you rather contend with?
Yeah. I mean, genuinely think we could find, and we've talked about this in the last couple of shows, but I genuinely think we could find that neither of these two keepers are the number one going into the World Cup because there's other good goalkeepers out there. And it's the same with America. It's like right now, that's one of the big questions around them is who is your starting goalkeeper? And it's there for someone to take. For all that Milan Borjan got criticised for making some mistakes and having some like crazy moments, he was fairly reliable. And you always were like, well, he's the number one that's going to get penciled in. And like Sinclair, as good a free kick as that was, the fact that he did get over and get a hand to it shows that if he'd been more switched on, then I think he could have probably turned that around the post. There's also questioning, did they need another man in the wall? There was a wall that was set up in the US game, and I was like, what are you doing? You only have 2 men in the wall. And it was like it was gaping either side if they had gone for that. But America were so pish in that game it didn't actually matter.
Yeah.
But the good thing about the Mexican game and the reaction from it, I think, is it shows how far the team has come
Hmm.
because the expectations have risen, and we're no longer yeah, we expected this, and oh yeah, we'll lose to America and we'll be fourth. Or it's like we went into this thinking we can win a trophy. We've come out of it disappointed we haven't won a trophy, and that's actually a good thing for
Yeah.
the players, maybe not for the fans, but for
Hmm.
the players that's a good thing because it brings them down a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that having that kind of reality check for both coach and player ultimately will be good. And the fact that it comes before the World Cup will be
Hmm.
extremely useful in terms of having more of a practical handle on what they need to work on.
I think it's also good as well in that it's opened up some big discussions about players and certain positions. goalkeeper being one of them. So these are discussions that we've got a while to talk about now until the World Cup. Not tons of time to get together in meaningful games to maybe look at some of these, because this was the last real competitive matches where you're going to have the full first team availability, because we know they're not going to be there, all these guys at the Gold Cup, and there's going to be guys missing. But then that is the time then for some players to maybe come in and put some questions in Jesse Marsh's mind for the October and the November windows. And it's like, okay, let's see if we have a look at some of these guys. And we'll talk about a few of them in a sec. We'll talk about the American game. And I think Canada-US in the third, fourth place game is not what many people would have had on their bingo card.
No, I think I remember talking about it with my friend who's a broadcaster at TSN, Camila. We were talking about the game beforehand, and we were both like, "All right, like USA Panama. Don't really need to know much about Panama because USA will just be Panama, and then we'll just Canada Mexico. Okay, Canada could beat Mexico, maybe probably the favorite given history. All right, now let's talk about what will happen like USA Canada in the final and like how excited we were for that. So I know even for myself, I was like Mexico US, if like I was thinking like it's probably like a 40-50% chance of that happening. Same Canada US, a 50-55 chance of that happening. Mexico Panama, I had that maybe like
Mm.
10% chance of happening. The fact that it happened was ridiculous in my mind.
I think Panama's win, though, also made the loss hurt more,
Hmm.
because you're thinking, oh, what an opportunity that would have been to play Panama in the final and lift that trophy. Again, maybe completely underestimating the opposition,
Yeah.
but realistically, that's how folk would have viewed it. It'd be like, oh, here we go. We're big favourites going into this, despite what they've just done to the US. And even with Canada's loss, that was still hilarious. And the celebration from Waterman
Oh,
afterwards with Thierry Henry, and I've watched so many things back. I've been watching CBS Golazzo America have a YouTube channel, so they've been putting up lots of the clips from Champions League over the season, and they've put up lots of clips from the pre-game and post-game coverage of all the matches with these guys. The chemistry they've got is fantastic. Kate Scott and Thierry Henry just have a great chemistry together, and you see it if you watch those clips. But I mean, that was a celebration for the ages. It was a magical moment. Waterman just completely gets caught up in the moment, screaming my idol" to Thierry Henry. And it was genuinely a lovely moment, and one that I think even Thierry Henry, he's spoken, it just shocked him and he really cherishes it. And it was a very special moment for him as well, as for Waterman. And yeah, I think anyone that saw it, especially live, will remember that for a very long, long time. But let's talk a little bit Canada US. We're not going to fully analyse the match. So, as mentioned, it was kind of crazy to think that the third, fourth place game was Canada US, but that was what it was. Canada, the better team throughout. I mean, the US, Felipe, were not good from start to finish. Canada, obviously, it was finally Tanny time. As you said,
mm.
even he couldn't miss from there, from in the 27th minute for his first national team goal. And I was like, oh, they're going to push on now. This is going to be quite a comfortable victory. Patrick Ajimang tied it up 8 minutes later. He was excellent when he came on in the first game against Panama, and he was, for me, he's their bright spark to take from this tournament. I thought he looked really good, but we should never have let them back into it. And going in at half time, 1-1, it was not a fair reflection of that game because we were by far the better team.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that Canada showed why they are in the position that they are, in CONCACAF in that game. I think that they controlled the game better and they were able to manage a little bit more of that emotion while still, keeping that intensity. So I think they learned a little bit. the team at least, from that game against Mexico. Um, but what I really was surprised about was like how well some of the players that came in did.
Yes.
Tajon, I think did really well. Mathieu Choinière, I was really happy with
I like the
as
changes.
well.
I think it needed freshening up, and it's what we talked about earlier. The guys that came in, they seized their chance.
Yeah, exactly. And Nico Sigor even came in and did a really
Yes.
good performance as well after the unfortunate injury to Alphonso Davies.
Yeah, but it's also interesting that that was when it looked like Canada started to play even better. Because one of the criticisms after the first game, and it's been a long-standing criticism, is Fonzie's trying to do too much.
Yeah.
He
And that's
shouldn't be
something
on the
that
set pieces. I think everyone's
no.
in agreement of that. And maybe not having him in there, it did allow some of the other guys to shine.
Yeah. I know that for like Alphonso Davies, no doubt about it, one of the best fullbacks in the world and definitely one of the best, Canada players that we have available right now. But it's been a question for pretty much ever since he's been in the team about where is the best place to play him. I remember when John Herdman put him at the 10 in the World Cup just because they were trying to get the best out of their most talented player and it didn't really work out. And you just see like Alphonso Davies at club level with Bayern Munich and you see Alphonso Davies with Canada at Bayern Munich. His role is very well defined. He plays within the lines. He plays to his strengths, but it obviously being German, like he works like a cog in the system,
Mm.
and it's not restrictive, but it's still like clear enough for him to just focus on what he's good at and shine. Well, I feel like for Canada, his role isn't well defined. And I feel like at times, Herdman definitely and Marsh maybe as well rely on him too much to not only get forward, but to cut in and start dribble into the box and almost be like this inverted wing back that turns into a 10 kind of hybrid position. And yeah, he just does a little bit too much. I mean, you look at the yellow card he got against Mexico. It was in the middle in the final third, someplace really a left back should never be in. And you look at where he got, you know, his injury defending, and it's because he had to race all the way back
Hmm.
from an advanced position that maybe arguably he shouldn't have necessarily been in had he been in a more disciplined role. And I think that for me is the biggest thing, the biggest question Jesse Marsh has to answer ahead of the World Cup is genuinely what is Fonzie's role in the team and how can you get the best out of him without it being, a detriment to the rest of
Yeah.
the squad? Because you're right. Like I feel like he came off and everybody was like, "Oh, what's Kenny gonna do now without him?" Nico Sigor came in. Alistair Johnson played left back for the first time
Yeah,
in
I mean,
his
when you were
career.
in the commentary, it was like, wow, that's what a game to get pitched in at the first time at left back.
Exactly. Like he didn't even play that for like the under sevens. Like he's never played left back before, but he did well. And with Johnson on the left side, I think because it was left back, he was a little bit more conservative because it was kind of a foreign position. And Nico Sigor, he's, compared to Alphonso Davies, going to naturally be more conservative. I
Hmm.
felt like the defense was more well structured and was able to handle what the US were sort of throwing at them. Obviously, barring that kind of scary moment with where they got the equalizer, it still kind of felt like really the US didn't do much. I mean, that was their first shot on target. And
Yeah.
then I don't remember if they had many shots on target afterwards
No, like
either.
there was one in the second half that I think Sinclair kind of dropped it the first attempt and then fell in it. So I've watched so much football, it's all a blur. But a lot of their shots were just flying over or they weren't connecting with it. Like the ball came to Brian White on the edge of the 6 yard box late on. He just couldn't get to connect or a shot for goal because the defensive play by Canada, it was what you're wanting. It was structured. They were fully switched on. They closed down. They didn't allow any room. And I mean, they deservedly got the win. And the winning goal. We'll talk about Jesse Marsh's incident in a sec, but the winning goal, beautiful strike by David. And the more you watch it back, his footwork to take the little touch inside totally just confused the US. They weren't expecting it. And it shows what a quality striker he is. And it maybe also cements the fact that he is going to be either there up front on his own, or if he's playing alongside someone, I don't necessarily think it's going to be Kyle Larin going forward.
No, no, that's something that a lot of people commented on, including myself, after the match against Mexico. And that is that I think the Laren era of Canada is over. And I agree, honestly. I don't want to be harsh because Kyle Laren has been, one of the most clinical finishers alongside David that Canada's ever had and has come up with some big, big goals for us over the years. But unfortunately, in the last few years, he hasn't been doing all that great, sort of mimicking his club form to
Yeah.
bouncing around in Spain in the lower teams, not really being able to kick on that well. And it just feels like he is at the level that Canada are, he isn't good enough in the current system. He just isn't able to do what the system needs right now. And I feel like you have now, especially now with Daniel Jefferson and Promise David committed, a lot more options to be able to call upon that can suit that kind of style
Yeah.
better. And so I think it is sort of a time for Laren to kind of not necessarily step aside, but maybe take a step back and allow these younger players and kind of take a bit more of that mentor role and a little bit more of that leader role in the dressing room rather than the one that's always
Yeah.
out there and playing. And I
I
know
think
that
he
for
will
him,
be in
that's
this. I
not
think he
really
will
good.
be in the squad.
Yeah, of course. I
It
don't think
did
he's
get
going to
me
lose his spot.
wondering, does he come back to MLS? Does he feel if I go back to MLS, I can refine my scoring form?
Wouldn't be a bad shout, I
Well, there's a
mean,
Canadian team out east, maybe two Canadian teams out east that could be desperately doing with a striker that could do the business. But
definitely too. The fact Montreal haven't scored a single goal this season
yeah,
definitely points to it. I wouldn't mind him at the Whitecaps, I'll be
I
honest.
I wouldn't
It,
either as like as a backup.
yeah,
Jury's still maybe out on Rios. Krylak,
yeah.
I'm starting to think we might have to write off,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So I still think he has the quality to perform at like a level like MLS. Like maybe I don't know if he can find that form that he had for Orlando City, you know, 7, 8 years ago. But I still think that he can bring something. I just don't think he's at the level of like a Jonathan David because that
No.
second goal, you look at it, and for me, the thing that separates good players from elite players is in the small little details. And those two touches that he had to turn away and set himself up for, mind you, a left foot finish. He's right-footed too. It's just those little details that it's like it's perfectly weighted, perfectly takes him away from the defender, surprises the entire US defense. He gets half a yard and he knows exactly where to place it with his weak foot. That's what signifies a top level striker, and that's where Kyle Larin doesn't have right now. And I think there are players like Promise David, who has what, like 20 goal contributions in the
Yeah.
Belgian league right now. There's where you have a player that probably on form and with confidence is capable of doing that more alongside a Jonathan David.
I'm hoping we can see Promise David at the Gold Cup. It's really who knows who's going to be allowed to get called in for these games and who's going to be in for the window before it. But I think we need to see Promise David what he can do. And Larn is one of these guys that he's been a great servant to his country. And he still probably, for now, has a place in the squad. But the striking core is just like this. It's so strong. There's so many folk pushing for it. And you're needing players that can offer something a little bit different, something that can maybe unlock something a little bit different. And is he maybe a little bit too much the same style as Jonathan David that you need to bring in? I'm just going to pick Jaden Nelson as an example, just obviously Whitecap centric, but a guy that can be up front and pace on the wing as one of your five strikers that you might bring into the World Cup squad. I mean, Tani Oluwaseyi has been good with Minnesota. And if he pushes on and continues his form, I think he's got a spot that's his to lose right now as well. But then looking in the midfield, some of the other old guard, like Jonathan Osorio, again, great servant to his country and to
Mm,
TFC. I feel his time at national team level is coming to an end.
yeah. I feel like it's it's to a point where we should stop looking at the players that got Canada to the World Cup in 2020 and 2021 in that lens and start seeing them for what they are. Like Jonathan Osorio is a great player, but you look at TFC's form and you look at what he's been able to accomplish, by himself at times because he has no support around him. But it just feels like he's kind of just being gutted of confidence and maybe of ability right now, at least in terms of performance, than what we're used to. And I just feel like similar to Laren, it might be his time, and he might just have to take a step back and be that leader in the dressing room
Mhm.
for the midfielders and allow the new guard to sort of come through.
The other big talking point from the game, well, but actually, before we get to that, finishing 2-1 was a bit of a disappointment to me because I think it wasn't a 2-1 game, it was bigger than that.
Yeah.
And it's like the Mexico game was not a 2-0 game for Mexico. It was way closer than that. And if it finished level after 90 minutes, no one would really have complained too much. This one, I mean, Canada deserved to win by more than just one goal. And then they kind of let the US come on strong at the end. And you're
Mm.
like, oh, they're throwing everything at us. At some point, if someone just switches off for a second, they're going to grab an equaliser here that's undeserved. But they didn't. And the US meltdown has been wonderful to see online. I've watched some videos today in a happy place, watching some of the commentators just losing it. Some good, sensible things made as well. Like the CBS show, their post game, I was really curious what they were going to say. Didn't give too much praise to Canada, or they were too focused on the US. But like Clinton Dempsey, Morrissey Do, they both said, you look at these players and it doesn't feel that it's a team and it's individual,
Mm.
and he doesn't think it's right in the locker room, and they need to get together as a group and get some cohesion. Now, Canada's got no issue with that. And it was interesting after the match. I can't remember who was it. There was the two players that were chatting away very vociferously with each other. It was like they were really animated at the end of the game to the Canadian guys. I can't remember who it was now. And I was like, that's interesting. You've won the game, but you're still analysing, oh, we could have done that better. We could have done that better. And I love to see that.
Mm.
The other big talking point, though, was Jesse Marsh's red card. We won't go too much into it. I mean, neither of the penalty things were penalties.
No,
I thought the referee was excellent. I thought she
she
did
was
a fantastic
fantastic.
job.
Yeah.
I saw your tweet today actually about that as well. But I was saying to my wife yesterday, I was like, I don't know why everyone is so upset. She was excellent. I was looking up who she was, reading about her, because I was like, I'd love her for more CONCACAF games of the Whitecaps. Because you're thinking, female referee, and times have changed, and female referees don't maybe get the abuse and they do command more authority than they would have done back in the day. I was more worried she's quite a diminutive stature, and in a
Mm.
game that could have exploded, I was like, oh, is she going to get caught in the middle of players all facing up to each
In
other?
front of a melee, yeah.
He was strong, commanding, dominant, and one of the best referees we've seen this year.
Agreed. 100%. I thought she was excellent. I thought she was explaining things very clearly. She wasn't taking the spotlight, which I think we see a lot of referees do, especially men, like they
Yes.
start to make it about them. But she kept it really well focused on the game. I felt like she made some great calls. She was not bullied or pressured by players or coaches. I just think it was like genuinely one of the best refereeing performances I have seen at any level in a while.
Yes.
And I was the same thing, so confused why people were arguing it against me, especially when they're saying about, the non-penalty call, which was a non-penalty on
Yeah.
Jonathan David. And they were like, how did she not call that? And I'm like, did you even watch the
Yeah.
replay?
It's like he threw
He
himself to the
slipped.
ground.
Yeah,
You could
it
you
was
could even have said he. I mean, probably not simulation. I'd like to think he just slipped, but there was no way, shape, or form there was any contact there.
exactly. And, you know,
And there's
Jesse
VAR.
Marsh.
It's like if she'd made a mistake, VAR would have said.
Well,
But
there's where
maybe,
I don't
maybe.
know because the Mexico game so soon after people I think lost a lot of
Yeah.
faith on that non-call on Derek Cornelius,
Yes. I mean, that
which
was a
only
penalty. And how VAR didn't call the ref over to at least look at it. And if the ref's like, no, I still don't think it is, still wrong, but at least VAR's done its job and called him over.
exactly. It was a complete
Yeah.
like systemic failure from the referee side on that one. But no, she was fantastic in this game. And like same thing is like I would love to have her week in or week out
Yeah.
in other CONCACAF games because that's where that's the level of refereeing that we should be at. It was like the one game where we didn't get CONCACAF or no one got CONCACAF. It
Yeah.
was actually up to standard, like upper echelon refereeing performance. So I was very impressed with her.
I've also got to say, I've seen some of the abuse that she's got, and in this day and age, it's just baffling to me. It's like,
Yeah.
watch that game and tell me how you feel. Like, I've shouted at refs for years, but I'm also the first to admit, oh, great game by the referee. Like, when you don't notice the referee, it's always a good game. But when they have to be in the thick of it, and that was a game that could easily have boiled over, and I think a hot-headed ref would have let that boil over. And the
Yeah.
cards would have been flying out left, right, and centre. And it's like then people get more animated. So I think Jesse Marsh was a bit out of order.
Hmm.
Lots of focus saying, oh, he just did it to get a reaction from his team. We'll never know if that was the case, but if it was, it worked. They got the goal. It means he's not going to be in the dugout at BC Place for the Gold Cup.
Yeah.
It looks like he's got the ban for that. So that's a bit disappointing. But yeah, I think if he watches that back and he sees the incidents, it'd be nice if he said, look, I got that wrong. I overreacted. I feel he deserves to say that. Last thing, the crowd at SoFi was not good from an American point of view. It was good for the Mexican point of view, but it was for a home game against Canada to have that crowd was embarrassing.
Yeah. I think it kind of shows the state of men's soccer in the US right now.
Yeah. And
It
these
just
results
kind
won't
of
help. It's not going to enthuse them.
exactly. I would have hoped that Mauricio Pochettino's kind of appointment would have helped kind of kick more people in because obviously he's a well-known coach. He's managed some of the best, in top clubs in Europe. He's also managed Tottenham. And I say that as a Spurs fan.
I know that's
And
why I was laughing.
and so I feel like, with that kind of track record, that kind of precedence, you would have more people coming in. But no, apparently not. And it kind of is worrying to see from like a top-down view because clearly there is an issue with at the core of, American soccer that needs to be addressed if the interest in, you know, you could say Nations League is not a real tournament, whatever, but it's still a major competitive game against one of your top rivals.
Hmm.
There should be more than, well, I don't know, maybe 15,000 people showing up to the game. There
Yeah.
should be more than that. And I think that the fact that there isn't says that there are cracks at US soccer that need to be fixed.
Yeah. We'll get Zach's take on how he found the whole experience when he's back. That is it for the international chat. We're going to move on now and talk Whitecaps and MLS, and we'll be back with that after this episode's song from our album of the month.
Hi, I'm Ali Ahmed. You're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
Lives on his own, the TV's on loan. He watches old movies. He lives in a flat, the liners are cracked, but he's got plans. Bingo, he sings like Sinatra with more feel. Plays with his pocket roulette wheel all day, and no one stopped him. gets on a plane, he changes his name, he flies off to Las Vegas. He saved up for years, cashed in his fears, he always had plans. Bingo, he packs up his white lounge lizard suit, plenty of hairspray and a big cigar, and no one stopped him.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's this episode's song from our album of the month. The album in question is English Britpop band Sleeper's debut album that came out in February 1995. And that is the fourth and final single that was taken from that album. The album is called Smart, and that was a song called Vegas, the band's sixth release overall. And singer-songwriter Louise Wenner explained that the song is about a guy who lives in a really dingy bedsit in Peckham, who's really lonely. And he saves up his money to fly to Las Vegas, gambles it away, meets Frank Sinatra, and it's just a song about being trapped in a life you're unhappy with and want to get out of. And the single was actually released 30 years ago this week on March 27th, 1995, peaking at number 33 in the UK charts, one of the higher entries of the singles released from that album. So the song Vegas there from Sleeper, and of course Vegas was mentioned as a potential place that the Whitecaps could move to if they were going to relocate. The best way to make sure the Whitecaps do not relocate, of course, is to turn out in numbers, support the team at BC Place, and have a winning team on the pitch. And for a lot of this season, things have gone well from a Whitecaps perspective. Not so much on Saturday, short-handed, disjointed, unable to break down a very well-structured Chicago side, and the Whitecaps' perfect start to the season has gone. Their unbeaten start to the season has gone. I'd have taken a draw going into this one with all the players that were missing. When you saw the lineup and who Chicago are missing as well, you thought a draw's a realistic result. But much like Canada, giving up an early goal cost them. They did recover, but they just couldn't find the breakthrough. Overall, both teams created. A draw would have been a fair result, but Chicago just had the quality in the end to find a way to break through. Came away with a 3-1 victory. And the Whitecaps have their first loss of the season. Some positives to take from it, but ultimately it felt a bit disappointing in the end.
Yeah, I do feel like when you have such a good record going into this match, you would want to keep it going. Obviously, I think the team has a good maybe excuse in the fact that they were missing so many players due to international duties and injuries. But even still, it's disappointing because some of the players that you would have wanted to step up in the same way that we saw them against Monterrey, because a lot of it was also a sort of a B-side again in both legs against Monterrey. You would have wanted to see them step up again. It didn't really feel that way, and it kind of felt like they were lacking in some departments. I mean, some of the players just straight up didn't really have good games, and I'm sure we'll talk about, the likes of Ralph and Bjorn. Some players did play relatively well. I mean, I think Laborda was probably the best player on that pitch.
Thought he was
For
excellent.
me, he was fantastic all the way through. Eddie Ocampo is, from week to week, he's growing and growing.
He
in
is. He's
confidence.
really impressing me. I'm liking what I'm seeing from him.
Exactly.
The bad thing with that, though, is he's in a position that you kind of want Matty Laborda to be playing, so Matty's having to go on the other side, and it's not always... It's like, can you have them both playing when Sam's fit, when... It's going to make for some interesting personnel decisions, I think, is what I'm trying to stumble over my words there and say.
Yeah. No, it's going to cause a little bit of a headache, which is not a bad thing necessarily for Jesper. But, when Sam does come back.
I have liked Matty at left back, though.
Me too. And I think that when Sam comes back, it'll be interesting because you can kind of be a bit unpredictable
Hmm.
because you can have Sam on the left and then have Mati on the right on one game, and another game have Mati on the left and Eddie on the right, and sort of kind of keeps things fresh and kind of changes what the point of attack is, and it doesn't allow the team to become too predictable and one-dimensional, which is a really useful thing. But yeah, with the match at hand, it just kind of felt like it was a missed opportunity for these fringe players to show why they deserve to maybe start more games when situations like these occur. And now they're kind of left thinking, oh well, I wish we had Vite back. Oh, I wish we had Kuas back, and not, oh look how
Yeah.
well Priso did, or like, oh look how well JC did, and it's just there's where it's a little bit of a disappointment.
I think the difference though with the likes of the Monterey game though as well is when we've brought these guys in, there's been a strong supporting cast around them. This kind of harked back to the days when Carl Robinson would make tons of changes and he'd be like, I'm giving the young guys a chance. And it's like, yeah, I'm giving them all the chance at once and they don't know how to play together and they're lacking the
Mm.
quality. So like JC and Gando's been fantastic this season and he's linked up so well with the quick little passing with Pedro and with Ali. Take them both out and JC probably had his poorest game, I think, maybe of the season. Just was not as effective or as dangerous. Ralph as well. I've been quite high on Ralph Priso this season. I thought he's come in. I didn't like him last year. Didn't think he should have come back. But I was like, oh, I was maybe wrong about him. He's looked decent when he's come in. He looked lost without having like Kubis there. Berhalter even was not as good and effective as he's been when he's been playing alongside Kubis. Priso made mistakes. Like both the first two goals were given up because of mistakes. And the first one, they were just caught cold. And the cross that came in from Zinkernagel, who was excellent for Chicago in this
Mm.
game, the long ball forward and he's sprung. He should not have that much space. It's early
Yeah.
in the game and they maybe just switched off. It's sent to the back post and Hugo Kuipers, who's been outstanding. He was clearly the danger man for Chicago. You don't want to give him a chance. Give him a chance within the first minute and immediately you're on the back foot and you're chasing the game. The second goal for Chicago, Ralph Priso just took way too much time in the ball and maybe he didn't get a shout the Zinkernagel was there, or I don't know what, but it's just the hesitation. I don't know, you have to make split-second decisions, but that hesitation, and you saw he looked devastated, and the other players had their head in their hands, and they'd worked hard to get back into the game, and it was their own undoing. They were their masters of their own downfall in the end.
I think that's the biggest, like, or the best way to describe that game. It wasn't necessarily that Chicago won. It felt like more the Whitecaps lost. I mean, credit to Chicago. I think they did play quite well, and
Yeah, should say
Greg
that too.
structured the team really well, and the players that they've brought in have like are have been linking up well, and you saw good signs from them. But at the same time, the Whitecaps just weren't up to par and shot themselves in the foot. Arguably, you could say three times for all three goals.
Yeah, because I mean they pushed forward so much. Just I don't know how well this phrase is known here. It may as well be shot as a sheep as a lamb, which basically means just go for it. And they were going for it. It's like, we may as well lose 3-1 to 2-1 if we can try and get an equaliser. And that's what they did, but they just switched off totally. And they even nearly gave up a third goal. We talked about Matty Laborda. What a tackle. That's going to be up there for the AFTN tackle of the year. The way that he got back when Zinkernagel was all set to pounce in the 2-1 break 2 minutes after the goal. And if it wasn't for that tackle, that would have been game over at that point. But they did push. They were trying to get the equaliser, and it backfired in the end. But it was frustrating because they got back level. And when they went one down, I was like, oh, this is not the start. Do these guys have what it takes to get back into it? And Vancouver, for big chunks of the first half, with a better team. And Rios gets his first goal as a Whitecap. Some folk feel it was maybe a little fortunate. I don't think he meant to rattle it in off the post, but he struck it so well. It was a rocket. And that's what you want. You want him to get off the mark. You want to get that monkey off the back. He's still clearly not fully fit. He's not a forward that is going to track back and give you a good defensive shift out there.
No, he's not a like-for-like replacement for Brian White. I don't know if you can find for value a like-for-like replacement for Brian White, what he does for the team, honestly, at this level. But it was a good finish, and like you mentioned, it's great for him to get it off. I just wish he would have done a little bit more throughout the game because it felt like immediately afterwards he just became another passenger, and
Yeah.
he wasn't really contributing all that much. He didn't get involved in the build-up as much as I would have wanted him to, as much as we expect, given that we're used to Brian White. But hopefully with that goal, we can maybe build a little bit more confidence, build a little bit more form, and we can see a little bit more why they brought him in. But yeah, I thought it was good from him. I'm curious to see if, with Sabi now back in the picture,
Yeah.
and he had a pretty decent performance
I liked what I saw
for
from him.
yeah. He had one really good chance that he kind of scuffed that over the head ball from
Oh,
Sebastian
yeah, he just kind of
Berhalter.
shinned it. And
He
you could see his
shinned it.
frustration. And it's just match sharpness plays into it because it's like, and still getting used to the pitch and the bounce. And I think in the small window, promising. Won't make a final thoughts on him until we see him in a few more games. We were both surprised by the subs, and you asked Jesper about this afterwards because we were talking during the game, and for me, Ocampo looked like the only guy that was going to do anything and get the breakthrough. And Jaden, if he can just get the ball and just get that one break, he's got the pace to get away from a guy, and he's in, or a little bit of a shimmy here and a dummy there, and he's in on goal. To take them both off was surprising, but Jesper said, yeah, they were doing that going forward, but they clearly were not giving what he wanted defensively and felt that they were turning the ball over too much.
Yeah, I I was sort of surprised by that answer. So I was
Yeah.
surprised by themselves in general because of like, he's the coach. He obviously knows the players more and the system better than we do, but it just felt like you just took off your two most dangerous players while falling behind. I gotta question the logic in that, and the answer wasn't as satisfying to me as I would have wanted it to be. But, he's obviously had to deal with a lot of load management right off the bat. Maybe he's being extra cautious, especially since, Ryan and Sam, two of the best players on the team, have gone injured. So maybe he was thinking long term, being like, okay, we still have Toronto next week. We have Pumas in a couple of weeks too. Like, I'd rather take him off and gamble that we lose this game because we're bound to lose one game at some point and try to
Yeah.
focus on the future. Maybe that was the real kind of intention behind it, but just based on what I was looking in front of me, I I would have never, unless they asked to come off, I would have never taken them off because they were both the most threatening players on the pitch for the Caps.
Ocampo is a fullback that it's the style that I love. He's not afraid to have a shot.
Mm.
There's not a shot he will not take. If it's on for him, he'll try and do it. And he had a couple, and he was getting in at the back, and he was just. There was the one that was tipped around for a corner that was given as a goal kick, which was like absolutely baffling. But like he looks good. Jaden did turn the ball over a little bit with trying to maybe do too much. But you just need one of them to come off and he's in on goal. So I think you can kind of live with that. And you can't judge too much from one game. And there was a lot of key personnel obviously missing. But I think it did show that the depth, it's good when they're rotated in and the other top guys are there to help them out. But put them all in together and they're going to struggle. And as I mentioned, the fast-paced interplay just was kind of lacking a little bit. Now, Axel's spoken about he was looking to maybe add a couple of TAM players.
Mm-hmm.
And I did wonder, maybe the start to the season's made him think, oh, maybe we can wait to the summer. And I don't want to just like have a reaction to one game and think, oh, we need to act now. I wouldn't be comfortable with this depth going forward for injuries or more folk away from international duty, I feel we need to add these pieces before the window closes.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think that was one of the biggest takeaways from this match was, well, if the depth pieces that we have can't cut it, where are the ones that were promised? And people were already mentioning that before the game because of all the people that were going out on international duty, and it kind of vindicated them and those
Hmm.
concerns. I was hoping that those players would be able to step up and show, no, we don't need them necessarily. We can still be, a top Western Conference side without these TAM signings. But now after this defeat, again, it's only one game. I don't want to, we don't want to like sort of overreact. But it still kind of showed us like if we would have had that one TAM starting midfielder, the one that Axel mentioned, the replacement for Stuart Armstrong to a degree. If we would have had that one player in that match, I genuinely feel like they could have made a difference. I
Yeah.
feel like they could have been able to control the match a little bit more and stabilize some of the players around them. So now it's kind of a what if situation that people are like, what if we did have that player? And what now
Yeah.
is the question of what will we do when this happens again, when there's another international window later,
Because the Gold
in
Cup
June.
is likely to see our Canadian guys called up because it's going to
Yeah,
be an MLS heavy roster for Canada and the US. So Brian White's probably going to be away as well.
exactly. So no White again, no Ali. If Sam's back fit, for sure he'll be
Yep.
back into the
Jaden, by the
picture.
sounds of Jesse's going to get the call up. I
So
mean,
four of our top players right now, they need reinforcements.
mhm.
And the thing is, Axel even mentioned that he was talking about, because when he discussed at the round table, he was talking about bringing these players with the international windows and the international
Yep.
breaks in mind. Like that was at the forefront of their decision making. So it makes it all the more frustrating, I'm sure, for fans to be like, all right, you thought about this specific situation. Where are they?
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be a big question moving forward as well.
I mean, a couple of the guys that they were linked with are also international. So if they had signed them, they would have been away this window as well with the European national teams. But no, they need to bring in a guy that is not going to be away in international duty, who's got the quality, whether it's an older guy, whether it's a under 22 guy, somebody that can be the difference maker that can come in. He's maybe not going to be a starter all the time, but he's on the fringe of starting, and you don't have to worry that he's going to get called up. Because even if Stuart Armstrong was here, there's a chance Stuart Armstrong would have been away with Scotland because we were heavily depleted as well. So it's like that would have been another player that was lost. If Ryan Gauld was fit, he would have been away with Scotland. If Sam was fit, he would have been away with Canada. So yeah, they need to. I think they do need to act with at least one, ideally two, and I think it needs to be in the middle. Bjorn Inge Udvik didn't have a great game.
No.
I was surprised he got the start over Bilal with how well Bilal had done when he came
Hmm.
in the Champions Cup. And even Bilal coming on in the closing minutes, you could see the little spark that he adds at both ends of the pitch. So I wonder now if it might be Bilal as the guy that we see going forward. Tristan, unfortunately, was away on family issues, which I won't go into the reasons which. You may have seen what it is, but he will be back for this coming weekend against Toronto. So Toronto's up next, and I watched the end of their game. I was watching the MLS 360, and then I thought I'll watch the last 15 minutes of the TFC game. Bernadeschi, Insigne, both in the starting lineup for TFC. Not the threats that you would hope they would be. Insigne, I mean, to his credit, it's hard to come in when you haven't been playing and make an impact, but he was just kind of meandering around out there, it felt at times. And with some of the reaction of the Toronto fans and the expletive-filled chants and videos towards him, it'll be interesting to see what reaction he gets at BMO if he plays this coming Saturday, and especially if he doesn't perform.
Yeah, I remember watching somebody clip together a bunch of his like worst moments in the game, and one that's really stood out for me was he went all the way back towards the defense to pick up the ball, and he tried to put a really like fancy curved pass across the pitch horizontally to like the right back, and essentially one of the opposition players intercepted it and had a great opportunity. Like basically, this was at the defensive line, so they had a 2-on-1 situation essentially. And instead of running back and being like, "Oh, I screwed up. Let me go work for it. Let me try to get it back. Let me make up for my mistake," he just throws his hands up and complains, and then stands there, puts his hands on his hips, and just watches. And I'm like, $14 million a year for that?
Well, it was crazy. Like Waking the Red reported that TFC had almost lined up a trade within MLS for him. And my mind's blown by that. Now, obviously, TFC would still have to pick up a big chunk of his salary. But with what he's shown, who on earth was going to have been the interested team?
I don't know. Maybe some Italian owner or something. I don't know, Joey Saputo. But
Well, that'd have been interesting. I mean, he's a good player. Maybe he just
yeah,
needs to be in the right environment and it's going to light a fire under him. I mean, in our midfield here, I'm sure he could do a job.
I don't know if I'd take him on, to
I,
be honest.
I don't think I would touch him now with everything that's happened there. But like, if you'd said to us back at the day, oh, you can get Insigne. Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that sounds
way
great.
back in 2020.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah,
could probably say, yeah, I'll take him because
yeah.
he had
But I
such a
mean,
good
he doesn't
Euro.
look interested. And like TFC and Montreal, still the bottom two teams in the East. TFC's 12 goals against, the most in all of MLS. Now, we're going to have our guys back. We're going to be angry that we've lost our perfect start. This could, hopefully, fingers crossed, get out of hand for TFC. I mean, they've been in games, and there's arguable that the penalty that went against them wasn't a penalty, but I think a comfortable couple of goal victory for the Whitecaps, I think, on Saturday.
Yeah, and once Brian White will be back, Ali Ahmed will be back. Depending on how the common ball guys come back and cool us in Ecuador,
Mm.
depending on how tired they are, because they obviously play a little bit later. But with most of the team back, I feel like it's a comfortable game. I mean, it's a perfect game, really, for the Whitecaps after this loss to
Yes.
go to Toronto in a place where I think more fans will be, booing Insigne than they will the Whitecaps. To have that kind of environment, to have that kind of opponent, it's a perfect opportunity for them to bounce back and get the win, and then hopefully kick on and continue their top spot dominance and their reign. Because I don't know, I'm not gonna speculate that we're gonna be there all season, but for if we can be there as long as humanly possible, it'll only be great for the team in terms of building that confidence and building that winning
Yeah.
mentality.
And like the thing is, you look around the West, and the frustrating thing for me was because I was watching as the results came in and what games were going. I was like, oh, this is such a chance to actually extend our lead. We could have had a 6 point lead if we'd beaten Chicago. Instead, it's down to three. There's two teams behind us now, Austin and LAFC on 9. Our goal difference is better. So I would be stunned if we're not still top of the West by the end of next weekend.
Hmm.
But like everyone's beating everyone. It's so tight just now. Salt Lake's in 11th, they're in 6 points. Austin's on second and they're 9 points. So everything's tight. Houston, the Galaxy, and Kansas City are a little cut adrift, but LA is going to come good. Paintsill looks like he's going to be back sooner rather than later, and that'll give
Hmm.
them some spark. Houston's underperformed for me, so keep an eye on that one because Pat Noonan down there is a big fan of Vanni Sartini. So I don't know if the pressure might be get a little bit on Ben Olsen down there, and Kansas City just can't seem to do it. But those three teams haven't got a win yet this year. And there's a lot of parity in the West. I like where we're sitting. I like how we're playing. There's no need to hit the panic button yet, but we just need to take Saturday as a bit of an awakening and get at least one, ideally two more bodies in before the window closes. So we've got that depth going forward.
I think that's the biggest thing for the Whitecaps to continue that good form is that they need to have those reinforcements brought in so they can maintain this level of play. Because that's the biggest question. We've seen the Whitecaps perform well. Hell, last season before Leagues Cup, the team looked like one of the top sides in in MLS, they were like hovering around the top three places. Then we saw what happened after Leagues Cup.
Yeah.
And so for me, the biggest question is like, okay, you've shown that you can play well and you can beat some good teams. Now, how long can you keep that up?
Yeah.
And
And
to
early
me,
points on the board are massive.
something that Vanny struggled with a
Yeah.
lot in his
That's
reign
what's
is
helped Dallas in recent years. They get out to fast starts and then they seem to always tail off, but they've got enough points to get them into the playoffs because of what they've done early.
exactly. So as long as they can continue that for as long as possible and get those early points on the board, I think Jesper has a good chance of, getting this team into the playoffs and in a high position, but he needs help. And
Yeah.
that's where I think a lot of fans are going to be looking towards is can they being the Whitecaps, bring in the players that Jesper wants so that he can continue this level of performance from the team.
Yep, let's hope so. And it's all to play for. It's still fun to watch. Saturday, we will hopefully just see as a blip. And yeah, we'll see what the future holds. But that is it for the Whitecaps chat per se. We've got one more part of the show to go, and we're going to talk to a Whitecaps player, one of the first teamers that has gone out on loan into the CPL for the season, 20-year-old goalkeeper Max Anchor. And we're going to be back with that after this episode's Britpop song.
Hi, I'm Max Anchor, and you're listening to the AFTN Soccer Show.
What you do to me, I haven't been the same since my teammates have followed me. Go on, I moved to Hong Kong with Bruce, Barbara, and Johnny Wong. I think it's strange, his friends are coming at you, and he thinks he loves you. Oh, 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 damn, yes, I'm made in Taiwan. Come on, Jackie Chan, oh, 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 oh. Last night, Jackie Chan came round. I played pool with him and we hung out. Mr. Miyagi, the X-Man, called in for a while as well. I think it's strange, his friends are looking at you, and he thinks he knows you. Oh, 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 damn, yes, I'm made in Taiwan. Come on, Jackie Chan, oh, 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 oh.
Welcome back to the AFTN Soccer Show on CITR Radio 101.9 FM. And kicking off this part, it's a Britpop song from 1995 and a single that was released on March 20th that year. We've featured it on the show before, as it is former Artist of the Month from Downpatrick in Northern Ireland. The band is Ash, and that was the first single taken from the band's debut album 1977, the band's fourth single overall, and that was Kung Fu. Only reached number 57 in the UK charts, and what I particularly loved about it was that it had a football-themed cover featuring Eric Cantona's infamous Kung Fu kick to the fan at Crystal Palace. Really good song, really good band, and it's an excellent album. Highly recommend you check that out. But we're going to get back to the football chat now, and we're going to bring you our feature interview for this show. And it's with a Whitecaps homegrown player, another one of the strong batch of goalkeepers produced by the Whitecaps and the Whitecaps Academy through the years, 20-year-old Max Anchor. Now, Max signed an MLS homegrown pre-contract in May 2022, becoming the 25th Academy player to sign an MLS homegrown deal with the club. Max then signed an MLS deal through to the end of the 2025 season, with club options for 2026 and 2027. He's currently gone away on loan with Canadian Premier League side Pacific FC. Last couple of seasons, we've seen Max kind of split his time with Isaac Bomer for WFC2, Also made one appearance for the first team in 2022 in an away game in Charlotte when the club's goalkeeping core was absolutely decimated through injury and COVID. And he's definitely one for the future. I know a lot of people in the Whitecaps organisations feel that Max Anker can be the number one goalkeeper here in Vancouver in the years to come. And at age just 20, he's got a lot of time on his side. So I got a chance to sit down with Max last week just to talk about his journey so far, the move to Pacific in the CPL for the season, and a few other things as well. So go, stick the kettle on, grab your biscuit of choice, and sit back and enjoy our feature interview for this episode with Max Anker. So delighted to be joined on the show, I think for the first time. I don't think we've actually spoken to you in the show before now though, Max, but welcome, Max Anker. How you doing, Max?
Oh, I'm good. Yeah, I don't think we've actually formally met and been on the show, so I'm excited.
How's life on the island? That's the first thing to ask you.
It's pretty similar, honestly. Obviously, like we spoke about, the weather is not much different, so bringing a little bit of Vancouver here. But obviously, the first 2 weeks I've been here, just been adjusting, moving in. But it seems like a good place. I'm excited for the summer. I heard it's wonderful here in the summer, so looking forward to that.
Yeah. Are you actually staying in Victoria, or are you in Langford?
I'm in Victoria.
Cool. And are you sharing with any of the other guys? Because I know when the team first started, there was 4 guys in different houses altogether and stuff.
Yeah, no, I actually have my own spot.
Good.
Which is nice, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, as much as you love your teammates, you want to unwind after training and have your own space. That's cool then.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful city. I love it over on the island. We might end up retiring over there as well. And yeah, we've been over in the summer and it's gorgeous. I know last year, I spoke to TMG when he was there and he spoke about it took a little adjusting going from Montreal to island life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you grew up in Surrey, you've been in Vancouver. Do you notice much difference?
Not really. I think everything's similar. I feel like the people here are a little more down to earth, actually.
I think they're friendlier as well.
100%. I think that's the biggest thing I noticed is everyone's just got a smile on their face, something like that.
Yeah, folk talk to you as well. It's it's a bit different for sure. I mean, how did this move come about then? Did you push for it? Did the Whitecaps say, look, we need you to kind of get tested in a different environment, or did James and Pacific reach out?
I think it was mutual between me and Whitecaps, where obviously I'd spent the last 3 years within WFC2, and I think last year I had a strong year, and I showed that, hey, maybe I need something else because ultimately my goal is to push to be the number one in the future within the Whitecaps. And I think I needed something a little bit more than Next Pro to obviously push my level and show that I can be mature and perform at the men's level. So obviously Emil had left, and then that kind of everything fell into line where I was looking for men's football. Whitecaps wanted me to play men's football, and then Pacific needed a goalkeeper, so everything kind of worked out perfectly.
It's funny because since the end of last season, we've spoken a few times on the podcast. We thought Emil was going to get a move. Wasn't sure it was to Montreal. We thought he'd be going to Europe, but we thought he'd be leaving. And we've been saying for ages that it made sense for you to go on loan to Pacific. It just, everything seemed to tick. You've got a veteran, a former Whitecaps guy in Sean Melvin there. You've got a good chance to battle for the number one spot. And obviously there isn't any guarantees. But I guess you're only 20 and you're used at the moment, I guess, to 1 week you're playing, 1 week you're not, or a couple of weeks go by and you haven't played. So you're going there. It's a battle just between the two of you. And I guess James will just have said to you, just show what you can do and you'll get your chance.
Mm-hmm. I think that was the biggest message, even from Jamar and James, was just, you're not coming here to reinvent the wheel. Just be you. Um, like they know the qualities that I have, and I just got to be myself, and then let everything else take care of itself.
I know from speaking to like Youssef and other folk at the Whitecaps, like Reagan Hall, they've been high on you for years as a great prospect coming through. And the Whitecaps Academy is just insane with the goalkeeping talent that's
Yeah.
got pushed through. But the flip side of that is you play in a position where there's only one guy that's playing. How tough is that for a goalkeeper? I know in the twos, if you weren't playing one week, you were pretty sure you're going to be playing the next week.
Yeah.
But how is it? How's that mindset? How hard is it for you?
It's difficult, but I think I've been very fortunate to be into like very positive and very good goalkeeper environments. I think even working with Thomas, working with Isaac, working with Yohei, these are guys that aren't really just focused on themselves. So in trainings, it's like, they want you to get the most out of it as much as themselves, which is good. But yeah, obviously at times you're just waiting for an opportunity. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. Like obviously, if you look back in 2022, Charlotte,
Yeah,
that's stuff that can happen. So you just can't get too down on it, I'd say. I think it's easy, you're not playing 2, 3, 4 weeks, couple months go by. You just gotta stay as disciplined as you can because the reality is your trainings in the week are your games because like I said, Charlotte happens, you gotta be ready for anything. So I think
yeah.
that's the biggest mental piece is just be ready. Always have one foot forward type of thing.
I know, like watching training up at UBC, it's intense. All the goalkeepers go through it. Yusuf puts it through your paces. I mean, let's talk about that Charlotte game then. May 2022, you get the short-term call-up the day before. Thomas is out, finger injury. Cody and Isaac are in COVID protocols. I mean, what were your emotions like? I mean, you must have had a sense going into it that you might get the call.
So I think 2 days before, so the match day -2, I'd actually gone into the facility to rehab. I'd pulled my quad probably a month prior to that, and then the day before, so the match day -3, I tweaked it again. So
Oh,
I was out of training, wasn't training, and they told me that night, you're gonna go to Charlotte, you're just gonna rehab there with the first team, so and so. So I'm actually in the treatment room on the med table. And one of the staff walks in. They're like, "Yeah, you might have to be on the bench tomorrow." I think it was Cody tested positive for COVID, but don't worry, you'll just be on the bench. 5 minutes later, so yeah, we think you're gonna have to play tomorrow. Isaac just tested positive, and I was like, "Okay." And then obviously, then you start to think, and your mind starts to race, and you get a little nervous. But um, I think when we got into Charlotte and then had the match day -1 session, and then when I fully realized that, hey, I'm gonna play, I think that's when everything started to settle down. And then even like walking out, I think I was nervous before the game, but as soon as I got in the field, saw the environment, you feel the crowd, feel the noise. I think the nerves just kind of go away, and then it's just you on the field, right?
yeah, and you played a great game. I know the end result wasn't a win in the end, but I mean, you certainly looked like you belonged out there, and that's all you want to do when you make your debut. I mean, do you think back to that a lot? Do you still get goosebumps thinking about going out, making your debut?
Yeah, no, it's definitely an experience. Like that showed me, like as a young kid, that this is what I want to do with my life. It kind of gave me that taste for it. So now every day going to training, it's like I'm fighting to have more moments like that because obviously that's what you play for. And no, I'm just looking forward to more experiences like that.
Yeah, and it's a whole new environment now, and it's a different kind of test to MLS Next Pro. I mean, I know last year you had the injury, so you missed a little bit of games towards the end, but it was a great season for the twos in general. You had a great season as well. You've had one game already in MLS Next Pro this
Yeah.
year, which was eventful to say the least. I mean, I watched last week's game as well, and I need to stop giving up 3 goals in the first half. But I mean, that game down in LA, coming back from 3 goals down, should have won it really in normal time as well. Then you came up big in the shootout, and I loved the celebrations at the end as well. You all seem to enjoy that one.
Yeah. No, I think the fans were giving it the entire game, especially to me. And I was just like, as soon as we got one, I was like, we're gonna get 2 and 3. Like you just felt that you went into that half knowing we were gonna get something out of that game. So as soon as it hit the crossbar, obviously in the video you kind of see me already start before the referee blows the whistle. I'm already starting to go to the corner, but no, it's all in just good fun. I think that's what kind of makes football like what it is the fans.
Yeah.
So being able to get into it with them was pretty fun at the end.
Yeah, I've got to admit, I thought it was over at the half. I went to make something to eat, and then I came back and was like, how's it 3-2? And then just last week as well, it was like that was just like nuts. But playing in that league, obviously there's some different rules, and there is the shootouts.
Mhm.
Has that really helped you like develop as a keeper, especially with facing penalties?
Yeah, honestly, I think so. I think it's very rare that you get into a penalty shootout in any sort of competition, but now you're doing it like throughout the season in regular season games. So I think it makes it a little more tough when you're going against certain shooters because they'll have so much more data.
Yeah.
So it's like now you got to worry about a lot more penalties. And I'm a guy that's big on the data and I like to look. And then I'm looking through the video and these guys got 14, 15 penalties throughout next pro. So you start to think a little bit more. But it definitely puts you in those as a goalkeeper, that's what you want to be in is those hero environments. And it's good fun. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw with Isaac in the Canadian Championship shootout last year, those experiences. I keep meaning to speak to keepers about this, and I never do, so I'll mention it to you now. With these new rules, which I thought the rules were you weren't allowed to move at all on the line, but you're allowed to move until they kick it. Is that the case?
Yeah, it's like there's like a lot of gray area. Like they say certain things, but they don't really enforce it. So I guess you just try to get away with as much as you can before the ref says something.
Yeah, because I've been watching different shootouts and folk are like dancing about, and I'm like, I thought you couldn't do that anymore. I mean, has it changed, like keeping your foot on the line as well? Has that kind of changed your mindset? Like, how much is that in your mind? I can't let my foot get off the line, or do you just not think about that?
I don't think it much so now. Like I think the rule needed to be in place because if you look at some of the penalties, like 10 years ago, there's goalkeepers 4 or 5 yards off their line. Like the one that comes to my mind is that Champions League final, Milan versus Liverpool. What is it, Dudek, where he's like almost at the 6 yard box and he's saving penalty, and it's like, okay, yeah, obviously now that's a little bit different, but I feel like I don't personally notice it that much. I just try to just dive normally, and I think if you dive normally, your back foot should be on the line anyways.
The new one that's coming in, the 8-second rule, because the 6-second rule's never enforced it unless it's Canada, America, and the Olympics or whatever, tournament, World Cup, whatever one that was. It was the Olympics. The 8-second rule, I don't know, will that come in midway through the CPL season or not? Because I know it comes in from July. So I don't know if they'll introduce it halfway through or if they'll just do it next year. But is that going to like affect you at all? Because I know you're going to get a countdown from the referee by all accounts.
Yeah, because we just had a meeting with the referees 2 days ago, and so I think it's being enforced from the first game.
Oh,
I think, and they were showing us like videos, and it's a bit odd because they say the count starts as soon as you catch it. So if you have no one near you and you catch it, immediately it starts. So even if you catch a cross and you go to the ground, 8 seconds is running down. So I don't know. I mean, as a guy that likes to time waste, it's not good. But I think I think there's a lot of gray area in that because their logic is if there's no pressure and the goalkeeper catches it, then, he doesn't have to go down. He doesn't have to secure the ball. But in my head, in the 90th minute, if I'm taking a cross ball, I'm going to go down and make sure I have the ball. And if you're going to start 8 seconds, then, I don't think that's really fair because I'm just doing it not out of time wasting, but to make sure I don't drop the ball.
Yeah.
So I feel like there's going to be a lot of, like ironing out kinks, to be honest, within the refs. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's interesting given a corner as well. Seems a slightly weird one, but I guess the refs will have to get used to it as well because there's going to be refs that don't even think about counting and they're going to be like, oh, I should have been counting that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know how that'll work out. Now, I know you've played since you were 4 years old. Have you always been a goalkeeper or what made you want to be the goalkeeper?
No, I haven't actually. I was an outfielder until about I'd say 6 and 7 maybe. And then obviously at that age you just rotate who goes in net. And I went in and I enjoyed it. I just remember conceding a goal and just being so pissed off about it. I'm like, I can't let this happen again. And then that's kind of my personality is if something gets under my skin, I'm gonna be upfront and challenge it. So I did half and half until maybe 9, 10, and then I decided to go fully in, and I haven't looked back since.
I mean, I've spoken to a lot of goalkeepers over the years. Some are quite nuts, it has to be said. Some are very unique. You seem very grounded. Like Isaac as well is quite a grounded guy. It's like you guys seem a different kind of breed of goalkeepers. But is there any part of the old cliche of, oh, they're all a little bit crazy?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say even for Isaac will agree is I think off the field we are, I guess, quote unquote normal. But I think as soon as you go on the field, there's a flip that switches, and I think just a different side of me comes out, just more intense, more passionate. Obviously, I don't think like Oliver Kahn style where I'm going to be headbutting people, but obviously, as soon as the game kicks off, there's a total different intensity. So
yeah, I think you do need David Ousted had that when he was here, and it's like I loved that, and it's like you do need that. You need someone yelling at you. Max Crepeau had a little bit as well, and I mean when you look to the future, now you've played for Canada at youth level. What would it mean for you to break into the national team set up in the years to come? 2026 is obviously going to be too soon for you, but it's such a good crop of goalkeepers just now. I talk about you only have one position on the field at club level. It's even worse at international level right now for Canada. But is that your dream to play for the national team?
Yeah, for sure. I think even like one of my goals would be obviously 2026 is a bit, I think, of a stretch for me right now.
Yeah.
So I think 2030 is already circled on my calendar. Like I want to be there in any capacity, but ideally playing. But I think for me, 2030 is my biggest goal is to be there.
When you look at like what they're doing, 48 team World Cups, they're talking about a 64. Like Canada now should be at every World Cup going forward. It would be crazy for us not to be, really. I just hope Scotland can get back to a World Cup because we haven't been there since 1998. So I'm hoping next year I'll have Scotland. But I mean, Canada, the future looks so bright. And for you trying to break through now as well, we'll just wrap this up with a little bit of chat about this season. So I know you've just joined the team. You've just played in the midweek friendly with Nanaimo United. You got a half. How has it felt joining the group? Did you just join them this week?
No, I got here last week.
Right.
Yeah.
Because when I saw Alex was on the bench last Sunday, I can't remember if that was before or after your move had been announced. But so how has it been then with the group? I know a few of the guys there. I know James has rebuilt the team quite a lot for this season after a tough one last year, but it looks a very competitive squad this year.
I think obviously this is the first team that I've been involved with that's not Whitecap since I was 12. So it was very different for me coming into an environment that wasn't in UBC. But no, the guys have been great. The staff have been great. I've been actually very like happily surprised at how professional and how good of a level that this is. Um, like you said, James brought in a lot of new pieces, and I think you can see a lot of quality in the trainings that we've already had. Um, like a lot of the new guys, there's a lot of young talent from last year. I know they announced some of the development contracts, and these are young kids that they don't bring down the level. They keep it there, and no, it's a very exciting group. I think this group can do a lot this year. I think we'll show that in the league that this is not the same team as last year. We're not trying to scrape playoffs. Like we want to be in the top three. We want to be in the conversation with Forge and Calvary as one of the top teams in the CPL.
I think a good chance as well when you look at some of the other teams. So just last thing, and you don't have to go too detailed in this because I know some of this will be like personal to you. But what are your hopes for the season? Just to get as much playing time as you can, continue your development.
Yeah, I think to get as much playtime as I can and show that I can perform at a men's level. I think it's very different than being with the Next Pro. I think Next Pro is a little bit inconsistent and on the opponents that you face. Sometimes you're playing first team players, sometimes you're playing some academy guys. So I think this is going to be my first year of consistent competition, and just to show that my maturity and qualities in Next Pro can transfer to the men's game. And I think if I can do that, I think I'll give the team as much of a chance to be successful as possible. And I think if I can be me and focus on me and do the things I do well, I think, with the quality that this group has, this team can go really far.
Yeah, I think so too. So thanks so much for your time today, Max. Really delighted that you've got this move. I'm looking forward to seeing what you can do with Pacific. Hopefully get over to a couple of games this year as well. And just want to wish you all the very best.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
That's great. Thanks, Max. Take care.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
So Max Anchor there, just chatting about his move to Pacific, looking forward to it. And it's a great opportunity for him, Felipe. He's going to be battling it out with another former Whitecap, Sean Melvin. He's been given the number 1 jersey. I don't know how much you can read into that. They've split the time in the pre-season games that Pacific have played so far, but this is a great chance for him to develop, get those minutes. And as he spoke about in the interview there, playing against men, get tested at a higher level than what MLS Next Pro is going to do.
I think that's going to be the best thing for him, is to be able to play against men. I mean, that's one of the biggest selling points the CPL has to bring young players in from academies, is to be able to test them against, actual men rather than, players in and around their age like they do in MLS Next Pro. And that will help their development greatly as they continue on in their careers, as we've seen with a bunch of players already throughout the CPL. And I think for Max too, he's being given a couple of opportunities with the Whitecaps, and he's had a little bit of unlucky moments. He broke his finger last year, so he was out for a while with the twos. But I do really think he has a lot of potential as a young keeper. I like him a lot, and I feel like for him, it's a perfect opportunity, and for Pacific, it's a perfect opportunity too, because they just lost their Golden Glove winner and Emil Gazduff. Going to MLS, being able to call upon a player that is in and around the MLS level and give him that number 1 jersey. The fact that he's only 20 as well helps out a lot. And, in terms of development, if they can get him and maybe make that deal, either extend a loan or make that deal permanent, it'll only be, even greater for them. I think it's a fantastic deal for both parties, and I'm really excited for Max because I want to see him actually be tested because it feels like
Mhm.
at next pro level, me watching those games, it felt like he was above that, but he
Yeah.
wasn't quite at the level of MLS as Yohei and even Isaac is turning into now.
Yeah,
So it's
he's
nice
he's
that
going to
he's
be
able to find a
facing
middle
better
ground.
players, and he's also going to have better players in front of him to help him out a little bit defensively. Because sometimes with the twos last years, it was a little bit all over the place in
Mm.
the defence at times. But as Max said in the interview there, from week to week, you don't know who you're playing. One week it's first teamers, next week it's academy kids. Because folk use those teams differently in MLS Next Pro. So this is a great move for him, and it will only help the Whitecaps going forward. I definitely can see him as the number one here in Vancouver in the years to come. And it's like he's even talking about trying to get back into the Canada setup where he's been as a youth. And obviously 2026 is too soon for him unless he lights it up this year in CPL. You never know. There's a third spot maybe up for grabs or even more. But just final thoughts on that. Pacific. What do you make of them this season? Well, we'll do our proper preview show ahead of the season. I've got chats to bring you with Marco Bustos and James Merriman as well. But I like what they've done. And I think it's going to be a very different Pacific this year to what we saw last year.
Me too. I think Pacific alongside Halifax have been the two sides that I've been most excited by with the signings that they've made. Pacific bringing in, like we mentioned, Max as a replacement. I think it's, getting a good keeper and then replacing him with a good keeper, both young, both hungry, both wanting to prove something. The fact that Caden Chung came back as well, alongside Marco Bustos, you see Pacific trying to bring back that 2021 glory again and getting the band back together a bit. And then some of the other players that have come in that you sort of know a bit from other teams. Aiden Daniels is a player
Hmm.
that has a lot to prove because he never fully realized his potential at Halifax despite showing glimpses. Matteo Schiavone for Forge as well as another young player wanting to get more minutes, wanting to prove himself. Uh, Even, Ronan Krat, we only saw at York for like a
Yeah.
hot second, way back in the day, and he's grown a lot since then, even though he's only 21. Like he made
Yeah.
his York debut at 17. That's crazy to think.
I
But
like spoiling my Marco Bustos interview a little bit. We spoke about him. Actually, I can't remember if we spoke about him in the interview or if it was when we were speaking afterwards. But Marco likes what he's seen from him.
yeah, and I think the biggest concern for Pacific this year was can they get the goals? And bringing in, Ronan Crab, bringing in Marco Bustos definitely helps. Defensively, they'll likely be fine. Pacific have always been a really good defensive
Yeah.
team. I don't know much about Pedro Machado, the Portuguese center back that they brought in,
If they
but
can
he
stay
has,
injury free, it is crucial.
yeah, and that's the thing is if Ali and Dunk comes back and is able to reach the same level he did at the beginning of the season before his injury, that's a massive
Oh,
boost for
yeah.
Pacific and their defensive side. My only concern with them, as much as I do like what they bring, is their striker situation
Yeah.
because that has been their issue for a while since the beginning, and or not since the beginning, since Alejandro Diaz left, they haven't been able to really bring in a striker that can bring in a lot of goals. Moses Dyer has probably been the best thing, and that was for a third of a season. But a
Yeah.
proper number nine that can score for them throughout a season. I haven't seen that for them since Diaz. And they brought in this 23-year-old Mexican striker Emmanuel Montejano, and he's only been an academy player before. He's yet
Ooh.
to score a goal at like a men's level. He's played for their under 17 sides at Pumas Academy. He's played for the under 20 sides. He was on loan to second division side Celaya Football Club, where he made 16 appearances, but no goals. So there's my biggest question. I think
Yeah.
all they need is to bring in a higher level striker. And then, truthfully, if they can bring in a good higher level striker, I think they'll be in contention for the top three spots and knock one of the big boys off.
Well, Josh Hare's been playing up front in the pre-season games, and apparently he's flying, looks fast, looks fit, looks hungry, so that's good. The other plus, Pacific's got 12 points on the board already from the derbies, so that's 12 points for their promotion total because they're going to beat Vancouver in all 4 derby games. The only problem with that is all the other teams probably have 12 points on the board from Vancouver as well, so that's the tough thing.
You're not pulling any punches
No,
anymore.
I was saying that you're not biting.
No,
Well, Pacific, I'm all in on Pacific this year.
I can
They're going to
tell because I
spank
was
Vancouver.
I was just about to say, did you just say it's a good thing that Josh Hurd is feeling fit
Yeah,
and hungry?
yeah, it's great.
This
I
is a new
love
Michael.
Josh
It's a new
Hurd.
leaf.
Love
Oh
Josh Hurd.
wow.
As long as
Wow.
if he can keep scoring and does the business against Vancouver FC, I'll be a happy boy.
Well, there you go. People can change.
Yeah, Zach will be listening to this in the car, going, "What?" Right, we'll wrap things up the way that we always do. It's Football Violence Awareness Month in March, so it's time for Wavelength. Before we get to the song, though, I tasked Felipe with watching an episode of the new Polish football hooligan drama on Netflix. Kibic is its Polish name, Hooligan is its English name. It's a 5-part show. I binged it when I was away down the Oregon coast last month. I loved it. I'll give my thoughts in a second. You've watched episode 1, you and your partner. What did you make of it?
I really liked it. I
Oh, cool.
really, really liked it. The hooliganism has always been a part of football history that has fascinated me
Me too.
because it is something that I've never experienced, being from here, and I moved from Colombia very young, so I never really got to experience what hooliganism is, but I've always heard about it. And I remember when I watched the Amazon Prime documentary on the Premier League, they talked a bit about hooliganism in England prior to the Premier League and how bad it got to the point where it threatened the very existence of
Yeah.
fans at football games and football in general, and how sort of the TV provider Sky Sports came in, got this new league going, and kind of saved, quote unquote, top level football in England. And ever since then, I've been, really interested in seeing games like Europa League games, Conference League games in these weird, like random clubs from these weird countries in Europe, like Estonia and Kazakhstan and stuff like that. You see how diehard these people are, but you hear also about the violence that goes on behind the scenes. I've always been really interested in that. So when he told me to watch this, I was very, very excited. And my partner was there beside me and explained it. And they're like, I'll watch it with you. And so we both watched it and we both liked it. I
It's
think
really gripping. It really hooks you.
it does because I was a little bit concerned with my partner that I was too focused on like the football side of it and wouldn't really interest them. But it was actually a really nice compliment where like obviously the football is there, but it's kind of like
hmm
a background element that's important, obviously, because the hooliganism is tied to the clubs that they support. But it's really following the story of this kid being, brought into this world of hooliganism and everything that happens outside of the pitch.
Because
And
the
it,
other 4 episodes, it's very well. Football's obviously in the background, but there's a lot of non-football stuff. I would probably say it's 3/4 non-football.
yeah, but I still like that that it's within the context of
Yeah.
football and
Yeah,
football
because everything
hooliganism.
revolves around it. And for anyone that doesn't know what we're talking about, the blurb that's on it is when his father is released from prison, 17-year-old Kuba finds it difficult not to follow into the hooligan footsteps. After all, football is family. And basically, his dad was part of one of the ultras. There's 2 main teams in the city. He was on one side, he went to prison for it. And when he came out, he didn't want his son to go into this, but his son's like, no, I want to do this. I want to prove myself and follow what my dad did. And it's very interesting. There's a girl in it as well called Blanca. That's all I'll say about that just now. She's a fascinating part of the series and her character and everything as well. I was quite besotted with her, I've got to say. And then there's Cooper's family and everything as well. What I will say, and that might be something for you to consider if you're going to watch the rest with your partner, things escalate very quickly throughout the series, and it is very violent, and there's some shocking twists and turns.
Ooh, okay. Well, my partner I don't know if they like violence as much as me, but they can tolerate violence more than me, I think. So, I
It
think
might
we'll
be
be
you
fine.
that's like, oh no.
Yeah, I might be the one that gets a little squeamish.
But you get a good insight into the whole ultras side of things as well. And obviously there's ultras that fight and there's ultras that don't fight. These are ultras that fight, and there's ultras that really hate each other. And you don't cross the divide, and the city's split up. There's things tied in, as a lot of these are, with like drug dealing and various things to do with that as well. But yeah, the twists and turns in the story, it went places I was not expecting.
Okay, well,
Oh,
now I'm excited to keep
yeah.
watching.
I don't have Netflix, so I had to binge it when I was away, and I want to watch it again because it really, really was excellent. So I recommend it. It's called Kibitch Hooligan in English. Check it out on Netflix. And that brings us nicely now to this episode's wavelength for Football Violence Awareness Month. We're going back to 1983 and a Blackpool punk band called Antisocial. And you can find this song on their 1995 CD compilation, Battle Scarred Skinheads. It was also on one of their early 7-inch single releases. This is Official Hooligan. Antisocial, Official Hooligan. When you're tagged at by the authorities over in the UK, you're tracked everywhere you go. That's what that song was all about. And yeah, we've got one more song to come this month in Football Violence Awareness Month. Probably, if we get our show out by the end of March. I think we will, because it's an early Saturday kickoff next weekend against TFC. But that is it for this show. Thank you, as always, for joining me, Felipe. Any final thoughts from you? I'll also let everyone know where they can find your stuff online,
No,
which is a
yeah.
lot of places. I'll sit back for 10 minutes.
Yeah, I do have a lot of places I like to hang out on. No, thank you again for inviting me. Yeah, people can find me on X and Blue Sky at FelipeV_FC. My stuff for Coast to Coast I plugged earlier as well. If you want to see more stuff on CPL, writing for Northern Tribune on the Canadian men's national team and the Canadian women's national team. Obviously, for you guys as well, gonna start writing more stuff for the Rise and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm really excited for the season ahead. And one thing I forgot to mention that I would recommend to you, I don't know if you'd be interested in, is that the UK's Ballers League just started today.
Yes, I watched a bit of that this morning. It randomly came up as a recommended YouTube thing, and I'd never heard of it. And I need to go and read about it. And I watched a bit of it. It was good.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's really entertaining. I think it brings out the best of the entertainment side of football.
Yeah,
It
it's
has
got all
some
these
fun
weird
rules.
rules.
Yeah.
Three saves turned around the post. There's no corners, but it gives you an old style penalty shot.
Yeah, exactly. Old style penalty shot. They have these thing called game changers for the last 3 minutes of the halves that like it's basically like a random rule thrown in that kind of shakes things up and given the name, hopefully changes the game.
Mm.
And for you especially, you might want to keep an eye on the 26ers because that is John Terry's team. But one of the players that plays there is Emmanuel Robe, the old player of Vancouver FC.
Wow.
Yep, and he played today and he scored today. But they lost the 26ers against SDSFC. So I would heavily recommend you and whoever's listening to go check out Ballers League
Hmm.
UK because it's a nice, fresh, modern take on football that kind of eliminates a little bit of that seriousness and makes it a bit more casual and a bit more fun to watch, especially if you love the old style, penalties and if you love dribbling and quick play and the less
Mm.
cerebral part of modern football. This is definitely a league to watch. And if you know, British influencers or if like old, because there's a lot of old like legends that
Yeah, I
have
say I don't know
teams.
who's involved in it, so I need to read about all this. We should also mention it's indoor football.
Yeah, it's classic like futsal five-a-side.
Yeah.
It's based off Kings League in Germany. It's essentially
Oh.
The British version of it, which is also like it was own. It's the same style, special rules. It's six-a-side kind of thing, and there's a bunch of like John Terry has his own team. Jans Lehmann, Freddie Lundberg have their own
Oh,
team
wow.
as well as Alan Shearer and Micah Richards have their own team. Like it's a really really cool thing. A bunch of like UK YouTubers, UK
Mm.
artists. Dave Santan Dave has his own team, one of the biggest rappers in the UK. So like it's super entertaining. It just started this week today, and the
Yeah.
best part is that they have 6 games all in one day, and they're only 30-minute halves. And so you can tune in, watch one game, tune out, later come back, watch another game. Like it's really casual. So like you can just tune in and watch whichever game you want if you follow a team, or you can just watch football. So I really, really enjoyed it today.
I mean, what I need is more football to watch. I mean,
Yeah, you don't have enough of it.
my wife's gonna love me saying, "Oh, I've got something new to watch." But no, it came up in recommended. I subscribed to the channel because I thought I need to go and explore what this is. From what I watched, and I did enjoy it. Wasn't a huge turnout crowd wise, but I think it'll grow.
Hmm.
I used to love, they used to have Masters football indoor tournaments in the UK, and I always loved, I went to some, watched them on TV. It was always great. It was like 35 plus year olds coming back playing for their teams. Oh, it was always a lot of fun. I do like indoor football. I quite liked futsal that I've seen, and I did enjoy the TST 7v7 tournament. So this seems to like combine all of this and kind of shaking it up a bit, I guess, like in cricket the 2020 did. I will check that out. Everyone else can as well, and we can talk about it in a future show. Well, thank you for joining me, Felipe. Remember, you can subscribe to all our stuff, aftn.ca. We'll have all the details of where you can find everything. We'll be back with another episode soon. Until then, thanks for listening. Take care. Allez Les Rouges, and Mon the Caps.
Going to your first match is an experience you never forget. The atmosphere of what's going on around the pitch looks beautiful, and you always look and go, wow, I'd love to play here one day. If you get the bug, it's going to stay with you for life.